Hello, math humans. We're going to do 5.5 today. We're going to be talking about loans. So our objectives are that we're going to manage loans and loan payments. So the moral of the story is if you are borrowing somebody else's money, meaning like you buy a house or a car and you finance it, you are using somebody else's money over a period of time. Unfortunately, the interest greatly increases the cost of whatever you are purchasing. All right, so we have yet another new formula, and this is just going to be another formula to add to your repertoire. And again, though it looks really scary, we're going to be doing all of this in our calculator. So P is going to be principal. Payment means how much we're paying, usually on a monthly basis. R is still going to be our interest rate, and remember we do that in a decimal. N is the number of payment periods per year, and T is always going to equal time, and typically that time is going to be in years. Well, we can also, just like we did in the last section, we can rearrange that formula and find out what our payment needs to be. And notice basically mathematically I just multiplied by the reciprocal, and so it just changes. So again, you would just write these formulas down, and you need to have them labeled well so you know which formula to use as we move on. All right, and then my last little note says, again, don't panic, because all we're going to do is put this information in our calculators and do math on our calculators. So we're going to start with an example. So Ed is going to buy an iPad from a rent-to-own business with a credit plan that has payments of $30 a month for 4 years at 14.5% APR compounded monthly. So when you look at this, it doesn't look like it's that big a deal, but I'm going to pay $30 a month for 4 years. Here's the interest rate. So this is approaching a very high interest rate because the goal is for them to make money. If Ed had bought the iPad at Amazon, the iPad would have cost $500. What's the price that Ed paid by financing through the rent-to-own, and then how much interest did he pay? So we're going to use our formula. P is equal to a payment, and then I'm going to have 1 minus 1 plus R divided by N raised to the negative NT, and then it's going to be divided by R over N. You do have to pay attention to that negative right there. Don't forget it. And so then we're going to identify all of our variables. So this is my payment, okay? All right, my R, 14.5%, so R is going to be 0.145. My time is going to equal 4 years, and then I'm going to make payments. So those payments are made on a monthly basis, so N is equal to 12. So if I add all of that information to my formula, here's the 30, and then I have 1 minus 1 plus the interest rate was 0.145 divided by my N, which is 12, and I'm going to raise it to the negative 4 times 12. Okay, so 4 years, and I'm making 12 payments a year, and then I'm going to divide by 0.145 divided by 12. So again, I just have to be really careful with my calculator, so we're going to do that together. So I'm going to enter the 30, and then I'm going to enter 2 sets of parentheses. I'm going to do 1 minus, and then I'm going to have a parentheses 1 plus 0.145 divided by 12, raised to the negative 4 times 12, and then I'm going to close that parentheses, and then I'm going to divide by 0.145 divided by 12, and then I'm going to hit go. And when I do, I get that my purchase price, P, is going to equal, so this is the principal, and in this case it's going to be the cost of the iPad with interest. Okay, I'm going to put with interest. Alrighty, and so if you'll remember from our calculator, that's 1087.83. So the iPad, by paying for it over 4 years, cost $1,087. Remember, though, you could have purchased it from Amazon and paid cash up front. So let's figure out how much interest Ed paid by purchasing his iPad from the rent-to-own business. So Amazon was going to charge $500, okay? The rent-to-own, over the 4 years that you pay $30 a month, that's how much your iPad is going to cost. So the interest is the $30, and you're making 12 payments a year, and you're making for 4 years. So that's $1,440, okay? And then your interest is the $1,440 minus what you paid, $8,300, and that means that you're paying $352.17 in interest. So you could almost, or you can't see that, you could almost buy a new iPad for what you're going to pay in interest. So again, the moral of the story is if you can pay cash for something, or if you can buy it outright, then you're not going to have to pay almost double what something costs by using somebody else's money. Okay? All right. So we've already talked about our payment formula. So in our next example, we're going to talk about monthly payments. So in this example, Jack goes to a car dealer to buy a new car for $18,000 at 2% APR on a 5-year loan. Okay, and most car loans are a 5-year loan. The dealer quoted him a monthly payment of $425. But the question is the dealer actually quoting an accurate payment? What should the monthly payment be? So we're going to use that second formula where the payment is equal to the principal times R divided by N over 1 minus the 1 plus R over N raised to the negative NT. Okay, so the principal is going to be the $18,000. Okay, our 2%, so R is going to be 0.02. Our time is 5, and we make monthly payments, right? So our N is equal to 12. So let's figure out our payment. So here's the $18,000, and then I'm going to have my 0.02 divided by 12 in the numerator, and then 1 minus 1 plus the 0.02 divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times 5. And again, we're just pushing buttons on our calculator, so it's a little bit tricky. So let's make sure we put it in correctly. So I'm going to enter the 18,000, and I'm going to enter a couple of parentheses. So for the numerator, 0.02 divided by 12, close the first one, divided by open, and then I'm going to do 1 minus, open another parentheses for the compound portion, 0.02 divided by 12, raised to the negative 12 times 5, and then I'm going to close, and I think that's it, and I'm going to go. So notice that the payment, when we calculate it with our handy-dandy formula, is $315.50. So a lot of things to think about. Was the car dealer putting in extra fees? Was the car dealer quoting you a different interest rate? So when you can go in equipped with the information and figure out all of the details, then that empowers you by giving you knowledge and gives you a negotiation tool with the dealer. Alrighty. Example number 3. Morgan is going to buy a house for $290,000 with a 30-year mortgage at a 5% APR. What is the monthly payment for her house? So a couple of things to notice. This is the cost of the house, so that's our principal, right? 30 years is going to be our time, so time is 30. We make monthly payments on a house, so N is 12, and my R is going to be 0.05. So I'm looking to find what's her monthly payment. So the scary thing is, and we'll calculate this soon, is how much interest we pay when we're buying a really big ticket item and we're financing it over 30 years. So if we first approach the problem, her payment is going to equal the principal, and it's going to be r divided by n over 1 minus 1 plus r divided by n raised to the negative nt. When you do these, I highly recommend that you find the information in the problem, you write down the naked formula, and then you start substituting in what you know. So here's the 290,000, and then I'm going to have 0.05 divided by 12, and then 1 minus the 1 plus 0.05 divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times 30, okay? We'll do that in our handy-dandy calculator. So 290, 1, 2, 3, 2 parentheses, 0.05 divided by 12 divided by open, 1 minus another parentheses, 1 plus 0.05 divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times 30, outside of that, close, go, and we get that her monthly payment is going to equal 1556.78. So that's her monthly payment, and that's really important as you try to figure out what you know. So before we move on to example 4, I want to talk about how much interest is she actually paying, okay? And you will be shocked. So if we take her payment of 1556.78 and we multiply it by 12 because she's making 12 payments a year for 30 years, we're going to get that that's going to be worth $560,440.80. Well, if we take the amount of money that she has paid in principal and interest, so the $560,440.80, we subtract her initial cost of the house, okay, we're going to get that the interest that she paid over 30 years is equal to $270,000, 440.80. So that is really interesting to pay attention to. The house cost $290,000. She financed it at 5% for 30 years. She made monthly payments. She almost completely paid for a second house by borrowing someone else's money for 30 years. Interesting thing to think about, in Japan, they have 100-year mortgages. So people pay for the same house for multiple generations. Think about the amount of interest that's paid in that situation. So the next example that we're going to talk about, and the last one for today, is that Morgan wants to refinance her house. And refinancing means that she wants to lower her monthly payment. Okay? So again, our original cost was the $290, and now instead of paying 5%, she's going to pay 3.25%. So remember, our payment formula is the principal, r divided by n, over 1 minus 1 plus r over n raised to the negative nt. So her principal is $290, her interest rate is 0.0325, her n is 12, and her time is 30. So if we substitute those values in, here's the 290, and then it's going to be the 0.0325 divided by 12 over 1 minus the 1 plus, scoot my paper up a little bit, the 0.0325 divided by 12 raised to the negative 12 times 30. And when you push buttons on your calculator, you're going to get that her monthly payment, so I'm going to write payment, is equal to 1262.90. So notice that her monthly payment goes down by almost $300 a month. It also means that she's going to pay less money in interest over the course of the loan. The reality piece that's left out of this is you often can't refinance a home until you've owned it for a couple of years. And then you also typically have to pay a fee to be able to refinance, and sometimes you have to decide what the cost benefit is. So that's it for today. There's your Adulting 101 class. See you soon.